quiet of my room, I read the light. Words on pages like stars in the night.
Happy Friday to all you beautiful people out there. Welcome to another episode of Fight Depression with Knowledge. I'm your host, Dylan, and today I'm actually going to give you guys a juicy one. I'm going to give you guys a juicy episode like I promised, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on, a couple things for me that kind of solidified, the old nail in the coffin, if you will. For me, kind of what was behind everything and who and the evils that were going on. And like I said in a previous episode, it was almost as if I just kind of woke up. Kind of crazy when you really think about it, but it's kind of how I feel. And it's like I knew without a doubt, as if I've always known. So, pretty crazy. But I wanted to get into the episode today because in the last episode I kind of threw out some teasers, and I knew eventually I would get to have to get to one of these juicy episodes here where people are either gonna agree with me or see where I'm coming from, or they're gonna absolutely probably never tune in again. But I do ask, you give me a chance to redeem myself, But this is a good one, and we're gonna start kind of back to. It's a good one. So I'm trying to figure out. I was talking to some family members the other day about this particular topic, and I think that's why I chose to pick this one again, since I already was rambling a little bit about it. So what it's going to be is it's going to be back to the kind of before NASA was created. So I want you to keep in mind here for a minute that Walt Disney was part of the creations of NASA. You have the Nazi scientist von Braun. I want to get to something eventually to what he left on his tombstone when he passed. But we had got him to come over, and he was leading NASA. So you got Walt Disney, you got him. That's kind of all I need to know that there's some sketchy stuff about to happen. But there's some other people too. Go ahead, you guys can look into it. I trust that you, or I hope and trust that you will. And like I said, guys, I kind of researched these kind of topics for a good 2 weeks straight. I dove into all the government operations that were going on before NASA was created. And once you do that, you look into the one that I kind of just, threw, or kind of just gave up. But that's when, Operation Paperclip, I believe it is when we get the Nazi scientists to come over from Germany, right? So you got that, and then, you have a couple more in there, and then you come across the Antarctic Treaty, during a time of war. You come across one piece of, or a huge chunk of land there, however you want, ice land, whatever you want to look at it. But you come across that and, realize that all the governments decided that, hey, nobody's allowed there. Even today, to this day and age, like you can spend, 10, 20 grand and catch a boat and see some penguins for maybe 30 minutes, but then they're going to loop you back around, they're going to take you to where you're allowed to go. But, there was just this, he was 19 years old, Asian, very, very smart solo pilot, and he was venturing. Apparently he lied on his flight plan, and he went over to Antarctica, and they detained him. He's probably still there. So free my dog, because he's doing the work, because that's what I tell you what, when I was researching all this, and I almost, it blew my mind and whatnot, I was like, I'm about to buy a boat, and I want to go sail, and I want to be told that I can't cross no further, and then, I don't know, figure out a way to go. But I quickly realized that just wasn't in my my financial destiny. So we had to, reroute to the podcast idea, which is still great. Love it. Love my mission. Fight depression with knowledge. Thank you guys for joining. A little bit of a teaser here so far, but we're going to pick back up, like I said, with the Antarctic Treaty. You look into, you kind of wonder, like, why Antarctica? It's not just because it's cold. It's cold in Mount Everest. It's cold lots of places. It's not just because it's cold. And we're not allowed there. That's silly. Because lots of other places are very, very cold, and humans are there. So, go ahead and look into it, please, guys. But once you look into and hear some very, very smart people talk about the history of some of those government operations, you kind of connect the dots to a discovery that was made in Antarctica. Now, then you can kind of connect, you can kind of look into one of the operations at the time, and, they basically tried to nuke the sky, is the best way to kind of say it without sounding too crazy right now, is, they tried to nuke the sky and don't really know what they were doing, right? You can go back and see it. It's all leaked, now that it's been so many years. You can go back and actually see it. Blowing bombs up at the sky, what could they be doing? I'll lead you here for now, and then we'll get to, the juicy stuff here. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. But, so once you look into a couple of those government operations, and then the year later, NASA's created, so they were trying to bomb the sky. They discovered something in Antarctica. A famous pilot, I believe he was a Navy pilot or something like that. You can go find, loads of interviews, and take it for what it's worth, of course. But you can find some interviews of what he talked about, and I've heard some good stuff about it, and a couple good theories out there that there could be some outer land out there past Antarctica, because they showed the ice wall on Game of Thrones. They showed that big giant ice wall, and past an ice wall there could be some other stuff back there. So I think that's not out of the too far of a realm of possibility, if you want me to be honest. And also with outer lands, outer space, the correlation with the little play on words there, extra territory, extraterrestrials. There's that fun play on words that I always like to bring up in this topic. Because to me it's it's just kind of cool, it's catchy, but it also makes perfect sense. We're always being programmed, and those are some words that we were thinking of as aliens. Anywho, so let's so we'll pick up with the creation of NASA. Our good dear friend Walt Disney put on quite the show. Now, I really, really hope that you guys put a couple hours into these topics that I'm talking about. Because that's what I did. I didn't just hear them one time and say, yep, it's 100% I believe it. No. It took researching and looking into different stuff and connecting dots that really drove me to where I am today. So, I hope that you guys look into some of this stuff and look into the creation of NASA. Excuse me. And who was behind it, and the timing, right? Like, the timing is impeccable. After, like I said, that they're trying to blow up something in the sky, or the sky rather. So we'll pick back up with NASA, right? So I kind of get it. The actual moon landing gets all the conspiracy, like it gets all the love. Excuse me. It gets all the love, but it's actually really much further than that. And then once you realize the truth, the moon landing couldn't have been possible, or not the way that they said that they did it, especially, after, NASA came out and quote unquote says, we don't have the technology anymore to go to the moon. So, like, they threw it out or something. So they had better technology back then, which sounds just crazy when you think about it. But like I said, it goes way beyond that, like, in my opinion. Like, it wasn't even about that for me. For me, it was the creation of NASA around the timing. But also, of course, what NASA, did and does. But what got me really is an episode on the Fact Hunter. And, oh, hold that thought. Alright, we are back again. Had to take a little quick water break. But we are back, picking back up with a podcast that I heard. It's actually the gentleman George who runs the Fact Hunter. It's his second, it's the other one that he runs. But it was an episode titled NASA, Why the Lie? Right? Because that was one thing I kind of dove around for a while too. Is I was reading all this stuff and I was leading, it was leading me somewhere. But okay, but why? Right? Why would they lie? So I heard that episode. Super great episode. George, good stuff as always. And, it kind of opened up my eyes to a lot of things. And it all kind of clicked and made sense for me. So, the ultimate reason for why they would be lying or hiding certain things, right, with Antarctica or lying about NASA, it's kind of to hide God. And that we are actually on a biblical earth, right? So as I said kind of in the last episode, the whole flat earth versus globe earth, that kind of gets a bad rap. I like to use the term biblical earth, and with that, that's why they're lying, is to hide that fact, and in return, leading you to keep believing, that we're living on a random planet in a random universe at a random time at a random place in a random year, spinning at a crazy fast speed in order to keep, up. That's why. And, once you look into the biblical earth and you look into, God's creation, everything kind of adds up a little bit more than from what, we've always been told growing up. What we've been indoctrinated to believe, I should say. So once I started leaning and looking into, a lot of this stuff, like I said, it all really clicked for me, and it was as if I knew all along, and it kind of, like I said, deepened and strengthened the battle for me versus good versus evil, which I've already always known was here, but for me, it really solidified what they'll go to in order to hide it or lead us astray from our religion or our beliefs or our just one true God. They'll go far. There's been many wars over it. There's been a lot that we quite don't even realize until you start looking into it, which is, why I want to help at least bring a little bit of awareness to this stuff, because it's pretty darn important. Now, we'll go back to Antarctica for a minute, and what they were hiding or trying to blow up or crack into or break free from, however you want to look at it. But you're going to look at and realize that once you read the Bible, it talks about the firmament. I don't have the exact definition of what the firmament is, but it is the fixed thing above us, kind of like picture kind of like a glass. Well, they always kind of look at it as like a glass ceiling type thing, or they make the references towards a glass ceiling. We all know about that. But, go and read about the firmament But what it does is it separates the groundwaters from the waters of heaven. And, you know, take that for what it's worth, but let's lead it deeper and further where the gentleman I spoke of earlier, Mr. von Braun, the Nazi scientist, when he passed away, he left on his grave, his tombstone, the Bible verse that mentions the firmament. You go look it up. Go look it up. So, to me, that's him leaving, he spent all of his life, well, I guess you could say his ending of his half of his life, trying to fake everyone with NASA and all this and all this stuff, trying to hide the true, universe and this world, and looks like he felt pretty guilty upon dying and doing so. So, once you look into a lot of that stuff, it really clicks, it really makes sense, and for me, that's what woke me up. Like, it really did. It woke me up to kind of everything that's been going around since I've been alive, that I've picked up and noticed and just kind of, watched and realized that didn't quite make sense. And, now I've connected a bunch of dots, through research and hearing other people's opinions as well, and theories is always good, because you can kind of see what resonates with you and connect your dots there. So that's where we're at today. So, it's always ongoing too. Once you crack into that, you kind of you just wake up to kind of what's been really going on around us and how deep the indoctrination actually gets, And I've heard many more things since then, and could go into way more detail from here. But I'm not going to, because, this is one episode. There will be many episodes. So, I left you guys with a teaser in the last episode, and, I wanted to at least get this out here for you guys. So you can call me crazy, but I want you to research it. Please research it a little bit. The government's been doing a lot of stuff for a long time, and a lot of it ends up coming true. MK Ultra, we all know about stuff like that, right? But these things go a little bit deeper. These are things, you don't quite know about unless you know the names of certain things to search, Antarctica is a mysterious place. That's all I'm going to say. I don't fully know what I think that goes on out there, or past there, or I have no idea. I've heard a lot of good theories, and a lot of them could be true for sure. But the one thing I know for sure is that we're living on a biblical earth, and you can actually trace almost everything back, and history has shown that we are living on a biblical earth. It's actually kind of crazy. But this is Fight Depression with Knowledge, y'all, and I knew we would get into some juicy stuff here eventually. I had to break you in with a couple nice episodes and some stuff from my life and whatnot, and but it's time to get some good opinions out there and some juicy stuff, and let you guys go dive into it, let you fully see, what's going on, and then it'll all click and make sense. It really will. And for those that it doesn't, it's okay. Don't go nowhere. Keep tuning in. Keep staying blessed. We got tons of good episodes, and one of them's bound to hit you. I promise you that. So don't go nowhere. Keep tuning in. Keep tuning in, because I'm bound to change your mind here eventually with one of these episodes. But this one for me, like I said, was was really the nail in the coffin. Once I dove into a lot of this stuff, I was silent for weeks. I didn't talk to nobody. I really, really researched, heard some very smart people talk about some things, and like I said, I like the term flat Earth, more of a biblical Earth. But once you see some of the evidence that goes into that too, and there's some good evidence to, flight emergency flight landings that don't quite add up. Certain things like that really resonated with me. And like I said, you got to find stuff that resonates with you. But like I said, it's kind of bigger than that. It really is. It goes, and it all goes around, all circles in at the very end of the rabbit hole. It's good versus evil. It really is. And pick the side of good today, y'all. I'm gonna leave you with a short episode because I just wanted to throw it out there so that you can go and research it. I wasn't gonna do like a full episode on just what I kind of came across, but I wanted to do it as kind of like a bonus episode type thing. And go and research it, check this stuff out. But once you look into NASA, Why the Lie, the Antarctic Treaty, Operation Paperclip, some of this stuff is crazy. And I got to get it out here while I still can. Why we still have some form of freedom of speech now that everything's going crazy. Things are getting canceled. And please, guys, do you guys see the craziness that's going on out there with the weather in this world? Please stay safe. Be careful traveling any other way but a car. Even then, please be safe. There's planes falling out of skies right now. There's like some of the wickedest lightning that I've seen here in Florida probably ever, and I've lived in Florida dang near all my life. Everything's flooding. Texas, New Mexico just got hit again. New York just got hit again. The subways are flooding. Buses are flooding. There's a lot of stuff going on here, y'all. It's August 1st now, 2025. It's crazy. So, please, more than ever, stay alert, stay vigilant out there, but make sure you're looking into some of the stuff that's going on around us too, because, it's always smoke and mirrors. They're always trying to throw something this way, but something else goes on. And I can tell you right now, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. We're in some dark times. Oh, and then also, you guys see this stuff about the alien visit we're supposed to get in November? Yeah, that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to meeting the aliens in November. Although, I'm really, really hoping that that's not their way of doing a lot of bad to a lot of good people and blame it on aliens arriving and then come up with a solution to fix it. And then we all trust them and love them and thank you guys. Yeah. Y'all, things are crazy right now, but, as George likes to say, keep your head on a swivel. I got to come up with my own thing so I don't keep using his, but I really like it. I like to, my thing is stay frosty. I like to say stay frosty to everybody in my personal life, the people who know me through my job and stuff. They know that's my phrase. But, I've been recently hearing that one a lot, so I like it. But, if you guys, anybody knows the original Call of Duty, I'm pretty sure it's the Call of Duty 4. Soap? No, I don't know. Somebody says it to the main character, and he tells him to stay frosty out there, with his accent and stuff. So ever since then, I've always said it, and it's just kind of like be careful, be safe, keep an eye out, stay alert. But that's what you guys need to do. But also stay blessed and stay tuned, because this is another episode of Fight Depression with Knowledge, and we got a bunch more coming out soon. Happy Friday to y'all. Enjoy your weekend and stay blessed.